Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's not Andrew Checo today. It's Geoff Mosher joining us for the Inside the Birds podcast, a special edition with Mosher because, well, you know, this week Christmas is on Friday. Tomorrow we're only on for an hour, so we're reshuffling the deck this week. But it's always good to have Geoff jump on the show. By the way, Geoff and Adam, the next podcast drops tomorrow morning, right, Geoff? That's the next time you and Adam got a pod dropping?
Yes, Josh, that'll be our normal middle of the week tape review, all 22 review podcast. So we'll have everything, and not just us breaking it down, but we obviously speak to people within the NFL, league sources who have viewed the tape themselves, and we give people an inside perspective on what they saw from the Eagles offense, defense, and we'll probably, I would imagine, get to some of that special teams meltdowns as well.
Well, we haven't talked to you yet about the game on Sunday, so I just want to get your general synopsis because you and Adam talked on the pod on Monday about the fact that, listen, there were some positive takeaways from this game, but in many ways, it just felt like the team was just outgunned for a shootout, basically.
Yes, I think that's really fair. I mean, you see DeAndre Hopkins, the catch that he made on the go-ahead touchdown, that's really a catch that DeAndre Hopkins and a small select few of wide receivers in the NFL are going to make. The Eagles don't have a wide receiver like that. You know, Alshon Jeffrey used to make some kind of catches like that, but although he is playing and contributing, he's not that kind of player anymore. Jalen Reagor, Travis Fulgham, both of those guys have shown the ability to go get the ball at times, but nothing quite like what DeAndre Hopkins can do than just completely take over and dominate a game from start to finish and make a catch like that.
How would you grade Doug Pederson after that performance? In the first half, I saw 20 points with a balanced offense, 18 passes, 16 rushes, only 6 points in the second half, and they dropped Jalen Hurts back a lot more. Then, you had the questionable go for two after they had the extra point, which later on it could have been 27-26, but instead it's different. So all around, what did you think about Doug Pederson's game plan?
I thought he would have to open it up a little bit more in the second half the way he did, Hunter, because of how the Cardinals were attacking. I mean, they were really starting to crowd the box. I noticed in the first half that many times that they were trying to run was against 7 and 8 man boxes. And when you see that opens up the outside to be able to make plays. And I thought, for a decent amount of time there, Jalen had to throw the ball 44 times, and he was able to make some pretty good plays. To be able to throw the ball 44 times and not be intercepted, especially in your second career start, first road start, was pretty good. So I understand what Doug was doing there. At first, I thought the fourth down that he went for it on was a terrible idea until I realized that he didn't have a punter at his disposal. But the going for two, I can't remember exactly what the score was at that time. I know he plays it by the analytics book in that situation. If you're down by, I think, 11 or 12 at a certain point in the game, it always says there to go for two. So nothing really jumped out at me as just egregiously a bad call or just poor game planning from Doug in that game.
I was very impressed with Hurts' play because he overcame adversity. A lot of guys, they have a rough start to a game, a safety, the grounding call, and they let that dictate the rest of the game. Hurts put it behind him and grew and evolved. And, those 2 touchdown passes to Greg Ward, the way he played from the pocket, and even getting hit 6 times, I felt like there was a great deal of evolution from Hurts in that game.
Yeah, there's 2 things that really stand out, right? And one is, as you just mentioned, it looked like the you-know-what was going to hit the fan there after the first 15 minutes of the game. They're down 16-0 on the road to a good Arizona team in Jalen Hurts' first start, and you kind of feel like that's going to be the point of unraveling for Hurts and the Eagles, and they did anything but unravel. In fact, they fought back and put points on the board and started to make it a game there in the second quarter. So I thought that was another example of Jalen Hurts showing some really good poise, some good leadership, unwaverability, if you want to call it. He has not yet looked like a guy who the moment was too big for. And that's impressive when you compare him to other rookies this year, because some of those guys, like obviously Justin Herbert, starting right away. Well, not right away, but a lot sooner, or becoming the focal point of their offense a lot sooner than Jalen Hurts. And Hurts is a second-round pick who most people felt in the league would be a third or a fourth. So for him to have that kind of moxie about him, I thought was really unique and obviously an attribute that helped the offense kind of not I guess go down with the ship when you're down 16-0. You could see that could be an issue sometimes for other quarterbacks. And then secondly, as I mentioned before, the Cardinals really came after him with a whole lot of different blitz schemes, and just, sometimes they were disguising, sometimes they really come after him. And he did get sacked 6 times, and a couple of those were on him holding on to the ball. But to be able to throw the ball 44 times and not have an interception, and I know that there was almost a pick 6. I think that's to be expected. There are going to be mistakes. But in general, to be able to spread the ball the way that he did, not really have to just rely on one single receiver, shows an evolution of his role as a quarterback in an offense that has always been, when it's functioned well under Doug, it's always been kind of an offense that's been spread around. Of course, Zach Ertz back, a year or two ago would catch a lot of passes from Carson, but for the most part, under Doug Pederson, there hasn't been that one guy who's going to catch 8 to 10 passes a game.
I'm definitely super intrigued from what I saw out of Jalen Hurts, and he's exciting to watch. The offense makes a lot more sense right now, but I just feel, for example, when you see him make that play where he fumbles the football, picks it up, throws it to Dallas Goedert, you hear, oh, this is awesome, Houdini extending plays, this is great, everyone's buying in. I feel like I heard that before. Oh, I did with Carson Wentz just a couple years ago, so I just feel that this excitement and everything I'm hearing about Jalen Hurts right now, which is valid and should be said, we've heard it before, so I don't know what to do with that information. I saw Fulgham go through 4 games of elite wide receiver play. Now he died off. I don't know. I'm torn on how to feel about this, because it takes me a while to get convinced that this is truly who he's going to be.
You know what? You phrased it so well, Hunter. That's something that Adam and I have been talking about, even in the last podcast, that I kind of feel for the Eagle fan, because ordinarily, in a situation like this, you just want to be so excited about the prospect of a young quarterback coming into his own, who you drafted. And, but those are the situations that you feel like when that quarterback is supposed to be your franchise leader. And it is exactly the sentiment that people felt about Carson Wentz in both 2016, when he started off 3-0 and, managed through a pretty decent rookie year. And then, of course, in 2017. So the Eagle fan right now has to kind of balance his or her feelings about excitement over Jalen Hurts and what that means for the long term, because the more excited you get for Jalen means that you're almost excited for a quarterback uncertainty picture, and nobody wants that. And even if you do want Jalen Hurts as your quarterback going forward and you've given up on Carson Wentz, that alone should give you some kind of hesitation about how you'll feel that going forward, when you were just this excited about a different quarterback 3 years ago. And you take a step back, and ever since Donovan McNabb was shipped away on Easter of 2008, I want to say, it's been a new quarterback every 2 or 3 years, and that's certainly not a sign of stability. And we thought, and I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that in 2016 and 2017 that the Eagles had kind of figured it out. They hit it on the quarterback, and they were even different in free agency, right? They were just not blowing money on guys like Nnamdi, old guys, right? They had figured out guys to get on your second contract, which they do well, like Javon Hargrave. But the bottom line is you just want to be really comfortable in your team's process. And now you just start to look at the last 3 or 4 years, and it's like you want a Super Bowl, but you just wonder if the process has always been right, and having a new quarterback would not speak well to the process right after you sign Carson Wentz, such a long-term deal.
Geoff Mosher joining us here on Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. New episode drops tomorrow morning. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the download button. You get those alerts every time they drop a new episode of the pod. Of course, you can follow Geoff on Twitter at Geoff Mosher NFL. Now, you mentioned stability, Geoff, and that kind of, triggered a thought in my mind, and that is, but part of stability also, is it not, when it comes to the GM and the head coach. Because you look at other teams around the league, you don't have stability, and they've interchanged coaches and quarterbacks and GMs. And I know a lot of people, they're frustrated with Howie, they're frustrated with Doug, they're frustrated with Wentz, but you need to at least have stability at one of the positions. So in your mind, is it more valuable to have stability with the quarterback or the head coach moving forward?
Man, that's a tough question to answer. I think the most important thing that a franchise needs to be successful for the long term is it's not singling out any one specific entity like quarterback, coach, GM, owner. I think the most important thing is that your quarterback, your coach, well, I'd say this, that your owner, your GM, and your head coach to an extent, especially if you want long-term success, are all on the same page, that everybody's interests are only about what makes the team best, what's good for the team. And then from there, that kind of matriculates or kind of works its way down to the scouting department, the rest of the coaching staff, the personnel. You know, teams like Pittsburgh and Baltimore and, Kansas City right now for the last 7 or 8 years with Andy and Brett Veach there, Seattle, they're able to kind of turn even change a little bit. They don't change their identity, but they go from, say, Alex Smith to Pat Mahomes, or in Seattle, you go from being the Legion of Boom to now more of a Russell Wilson operation. And then, of course, in Baltimore, you went from, your Joe Flacco's to your Lamar Jackson, because everything works correctly on top. Everybody's in agreement. Everybody knows what the identity is. When you go out and look for football players, you have the same concept year after year after year. You don't change that year after year after year. And I don't think the Eagles have always had that continuity and cohesion from the top. So therefore, it can't really be manifested even in the middle levels when you talk about certain players and the product you're putting out on the field. So without trying to single out one more than the other as far as quarterback and coach, I just think franchise cohesion and symmetry is the most important thing you can have to try to get long-term success. It doesn't mean you're going to win 5 Super Bowls. Obviously, you need talent and you need a little luck and things like that. But if you want to consistently, you don't want to be the team that has a nice little run like the Eagles have had and then completely bottom out, right? That's a sign where things start to come apart at the seams, and you have reports of this guy not being happy and this guy. The Eagles have kind of always had that around them, Josh, for a long time. And I just think that, your Christmas wish list for the Eagles would be just a franchise that pulls in the same direction.
Well, Josh mentioned Howie Roseman. What are you hearing about the John Dorsey story, his role, anything else tied with his name being here in the Eagles organization now?
Yeah, so John Dorsey has been involved with the club for quite a while. Meaning like more than just the last month or two. I believe it was shortly after the draft that they at least had some conversations, and he started to become in an advisory role and a scouting role for the team. So he's been here throughout, for quite a while, a couple months. And, I can't tell you what kind of impact he's had on any single one decision. I think that his strength in the past has been in drafting. And I know that sounds great for, the Eagles right now because they feel like the Eagles need help in drafting. But I feel like it's the same kind of conversation that you'll have year after year after year. The guy who pulls the trigger on draft picks is Howie Roseman. So not John Dorsey, not Andy Weidel, who's, supposed to be number 2 to Howie Roseman. And it wasn't Joe Douglas when Joe Douglas was with the Eagles. It was Howie Roseman who makes the pick. And so if that doesn't change, I really don't see the scouting philosophy or the personnel picking philosophy, drafting philosophy really changing because Howie will make the pick.
The Eagles have a history, though, in recent years, right? They brought in Tom Donahue a couple of years ago. Now they're bringing in Dorsey. I know that, when they brought in Andrew Berry, you and Adam talked about on the Inside the Birds podcast that, he was kind of like there as a stepping stone to his next job, and now he's the GM in Cleveland. So this isn't new for them to bring in different people into the organization. I feel like there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's actually a positive in Howie Roseman's column that he's willing to bring in these well-thought-of people like Dorsey and Donahue in here to see what they think.
Yeah, some of the guys you're mentioning are all brought in for different reasons. Tom Donahue is like the advisor because he used to be a GM, so he's not just draft related, right? He's how you you operate your franchise. And he's been with the team. He's a tangible part of the team. He's our front office, I should say. So he's around. He's there, and he's been for quite a while. And I believe he came on after they lost Ryan Grigson to Indianapolis. I want to say, I could be wrong about that. I forget how long Tom's been with the team, or maybe it was when Howie got his power restored. But yeah, he's been with the team for a while. Andrew Berry was brought in, by my understanding, to really become the lead on their analytics department and to help out in of course every area of the front office. But really, I was told he was to preside over the analytics department and marry that with the rest of what they do. I don't think John Dorsey per se has kind of an analytics role involved, more of probably a college and pro scouting role. I think that you can. I'm not trying to rip you here, Josh. I totally understand what you're saying. You can talk yourself into anything being a good idea, but you can also talk yourself into anything being not such a great idea. So you can say, hey, look, it's really good to have a guy as experienced as John Dorsey as part of the scouting staff. Sure. But you could also look at the other way and say, wait a minute, you've got like 3 directors of college scouting. You have a director of pro scouting. We talk about the offense already with all these coaches who are brought in, and it's like, how many voices do you need before it becomes a little bit of a whose voice matters more? And you can make that argument where you bring in John Dorsey. Whose spot was he replacing? They didn't necessarily lose somebody that they needed him. So does that create what I was talking about again, about having everybody on the same page? Does that create a situation where you've got John Dorsey having a louder voice and other guys who are already in place? And I don't know how it works. I'm not trying to tell people it's good or bad. I really don't know what to make of it. I think at the end of the day, it's still Howie Roseman that makes the pick. I mean, they did this. You're right. They also did this with Scott McLuhan a year or two ago, where he was brought in as a scouting advisor to or they subscribed to his scouting service as it is. So it always I look at it as always a little strange, Josh, that when you have as big of a personnel staff as the Eagles do, that you continuously look to outside sources to add to it. Is that something that you see other organizations that are really firm in their process do? I don't know. I really don't. Maybe some do, some don't. I almost don't put a value judgment on it, but I do. As much as you might look at it and say it's a good thing, I also look at it and wonder and question whether it is a good thing.
By the way, just for your own sanity, Tom Donahoe was named Senior Director of Player Personnel during the press conference on December 30th, 2015, when Jeffrey Lurie announced the firing of Chip Kelly and the restructuring of the front office with Howie Roseman. So
Ed Manowitz was gone and Chip Kelly were gone, and then Howie was told he had to really, hire a GM. But until that, they had brought in Tom Donahoe because they valued his. I think they had a prior relationship, Howie and Tom, and he valued him as an advisor.
Moshe, yesterday we heard that Deshaun Jackson's 21-day window was activated. Should we expect to see him soon, let's say Sunday?
I feel like the perfect ending of this year, right, would be for the Eagles and Washington to play in the final week of the season, and Jalen Hurts on his first drop back in 12 personnel, his only 2 receivers are Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson. That would be like 2020 for the Eagles in a nutshell. I really don't see a reason to have to play Deshaun, although I've said that about Alshon as well. But I mean, you are seeing development from Jalen Reagor. You are seeing development, at least in one game. You saw Quez Watkins put a nice little spin move and take that to the house on a I guess a kind of a tunnel screen. So if you're looking for speed, you certainly have enough of there between Watkins and Reagor. And, if they want to put Hightower back on the field, they can do that again as well. But, the way that they've made decisions and kind of catered to the veterans, be it Jason Peters and Alshon Jeffrey, it wouldn't surprise me if somehow Deshaun Jackson made his way back onto the football field.
It's just strange, though, because of the fact that I talked with Andrew Checo about this yesterday here on 97.3 ESPN about Alshon Jeffrey had 63% of the wide receiver snaps on Sunday. 63%. Meanwhile, Ward was 53. Watkins was 34. Fulgham was 31. It's almost like this team it doesn't matter about the development of the young receivers. It doesn't matter that Greg Ward had 2 touchdowns and that Watkins had that big play. It's, they're healthy. Let's put them back on the field because they're Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, it seems like that. Like I said, they've capitulated to veterans, but I also, look, I know that they're not thrilled with the recent weeks of Hightower and Fulgham, right? I mean, Fulgham made some catches there at the end of the game, but the only reason he was in was because Rager was sidelined with an ankle, which is fine, by the way. He's fine. He should be good to play on Sunday. But there's something going on with Fulgham and Hightower where they just haven't done enough to be able to earn their coach's trust anymore to put him out on the field, and they have to sit there and watch as the old guard able to be doing more. Fulgham was unbelievable for a 4-week stretch, and then the offense went in the tank. I know that the coaches clearly aren't thrilled with Hightower and Fulgham over the last few weeks, and exactly specifically what, I'm not sure, but it's clear that they're playing the veterans because they want Fulgham and Hightower specifically, I guess, to watch and perform better so that they can get on the field. I thought the body language, at least from Fulgham, when the offense really started to tank there and he started to become lost, you could see he was a little frustrated. So I think the coaches really want to see a little bit more out of these guys Monday through Friday before they trust them to get them back on the field.
How do you assess the defense's performance? They had 3 turnovers. They allowed 33 points, although the block punt played a role. But they put the offense in good position when it came to some short field as well. So how do you look at this defense, knowing, too, that they were very limited in resources?
Yeah, you make a fair point. I mean, the Cardinals scored 33 points, but really offensively they scored 31 because there was the intentional grounding safety. And then, as you mentioned, the block punt, basically, not that you have to give up a touchdown every time you have a turnover, but that was a difficult situation. So if you want to take those 7 points and then the 9 points away and say really they gave up about 24 points on the road against an Arizona team that has a lot of weapons when they're banged up, that's not bad. It really isn't. And guys, I thought fought hard. I mean, Alex Singleton continues to play well. I no longer kind of mockingly refer to him as a third linebacker or a starting linebacker only on the Eagles. I think on some other teams he'd be able to at least have a role. I mean, he shows you he's got good energy. He's good nose for the run. He's working on his coverage. It's never going to be great, I don't think, but he's certainly been a big-time upgrade over Nate Gary. And it's certainly fair to question everybody involved. Ken Vlajol, Jim Schwartz, Doug Pederson, all the coaches on why Nate Gary had to get exposed for about 5 or 6 weeks there before Alex Singleton got more time. And I also thought that the kid Michael Jacquet, yeah, he gave up plays, but he was there fighting and competitive. I mean, how many times have we seen the ball get thrown over a cornerback's head over the last 2 years and a wide receiver score a touchdown? And not until like the guy's done doing his dance do you see the Eagles corner like finally get into the end zone because he was beaten by 30 yards. That was not the case against Arizona. I mean, they made plays, but they had to work for the plays that they made. So I thought Epps, he had the interception, but he also had a breakup. I mean, these guys fight pretty hard and put it all out there. And nobody made such egregious mistakes that you're like, this guy has to be off the team tomorrow. So I was actually fairly impressed with the back end, impressed given the circumstances for the back end. And I thought the front four did a good job of moving Kyler Murray off his spot and getting him uncomfortable.
He's Geoff Mosher. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast. New episode dropping tomorrow morning. Geoff Mosher, Adam Kaplan with all the latest insights on the Eagles-Cardinals game as they start looking as well ahead to the next game versus the Cowboys. And the next time you hear Geoff Mosher here on 97.3 ESPN is a part of the Sports Bash Christmas special that'll air on Christmas Day. And as all guests, Geoff appeared on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline. Make sure you follow him on Twitter for all your Eagles NFL news at Geoff Mosher NFL. Geoff, I appreciate the time, and I appreciate you.
Merry Christmas, fellas. Thanks very much.
Merry Christmas, Geoff. Obviously, Christmas this Friday.
Yes. Crazy, isn't it? Just comes and goes.
Where did time go?
I don't know.
I feel like this month has just flown by.